To this lesson on combining past tenses. In level 6, it was really our first time deep diving into the past. So far we've collected the simple past and the past progressive. Now these two tenses actually marry very well together. For example, in this sentence we have I was working when he called me. If we did a visual representation of this sentence, it would look like this. On the horizontal line we have the past progressive, so this is what was going on at the time. Then in the blue line above going down, we have the simple past, so this is the piece of action. We can put the exact phrases onto these lines. So on the bottom we have I was working, so this is the was with ing, this is the past progressive, this is what was happening at the time. I was working. Then the simple past comes in here as a piece of action, he called me. So here you have a very simple example of how those two tenses work so well together. And this is how I would like you to visualize them. So let's go back to our sentence. How would you say I was working? Estaba trabajando. And the word for when? Cuando. How would you say he called me? Me llamó. Of course, to get this, you simply get rid of the AR and replace it with that off with an accent because the angle is he. So, me llamó, he called me. Now try the whole thing. I was working when he called me. Estaba trabajando cuando me llamó. We can also switch this around using the word while. This in Spanish is mientras. So the sentence could also be like this. He called me while I was working. How would you say it? Me llamó mientras estaba trabajando. Both ways are perfectly correct. It just depends on which connecting word you would like to use. So once again we have cuando for when and mientras for while. Let's look at another example. I bought a coffee while I was waiting. So first of all, how do you say I bought? Compré. I bought a coffee. Compré un café. The word for while is mientras. And how would you say I was waiting? Estaba esperando. Now let's put it all together. I bought a coffee while I was waiting. Compré un café mientras estaba esperando. What about this one? They were having dinner when I called. First of all, what is to have dinner? Cenar. Now how would you say they were having dinner? Estaban cenando. What is I called? Llamé. So again, let's put it together. They were having dinner when I called. Estaban cenando cuando llamé. If we put this into a visual representation, again, you can see that we have the past progressive, which is the background, what was going on. They were having dinner. Then on top of that, we have the piece of action, which is I called, so the simple past, llamé. Once again, let's switch this around. How would you say, I called while they were having dinner? Llamé mientras estaban cenando. Just out of curiosity, I wonder if you could say, I called them while they were having dinner. Les llamé mientras estaban cenando. So here we have the les, to them I called. So as you can see, these two tenses make a kind of perfect marriage for sentence building. So we're combining the past progressive with the simple past. And of course, this is used all the time in everyday language. Let's do some more examples. Here we have, I was speaking with her when you arrived. First of all, let's do our visual representation. So the past progressive, I was speaking with her. This is how I want you to visualize it. As a horizontal line, this is what was going on at the time. When you arrived. Now we have the action, this piece of simple past. So how would you say I was speaking? Estaba hablando. I was speaking with her. Estaba hablando con ella. Now finally, how would you say when you arrived? Cuando llegaste. Let's put it all together. I was speaking with her when you arrived. Estaba hablando con ella cuando llegaste. Now we'll switch it around. How would you say you arrived while I was speaking with her? Llegaste mientras estaba hablando con ella. Now we can also use multiple past progressives at the same time. So here's what I mean by that. I was buying a coffee, and while I was paying, my phone rang. In a visual representation, it would look like this. We have two past progressives going on at the same time. The first one, I was buying coffee, and while I was waiting. Notice we have was buying and was waiting. This is what the past progressive is very good at doing. We can have multiple things happening simultaneously. They're going on at the same time. Now, this is not possible in the simple past. In the simple past, one action starts and finishes, and then it's followed by another one and another one. There's a definite end that the action is over. So here we have all of our background. This is the description of the scene. And here we have the piece of action. So how would you say I was buying a coffee? Estaba comprando un café. And while? Y mientras. Now say, I was paying. Estaba pagando. Let's put that much together. I was buying a coffee, and while I was paying, estaba comprando un café, y mientras estaba pagando. Notice here that we're waiting for the piece of action. If in English or in Spanish you said that I was buying a coffee and while I was paying, the person would be like, and then what happened? This is why we need the simple past to complete it. So what happened is my phone rang. So my phone in Spanish will be mi teléfono. This is not our first touch with this word, but you might have forgotten it. So mi teléfono. Now the verb to ring is also to sound in Spanish, which is sonar. This is also a verb we've seen before. So it rang would be the simple past, and that would be sonó. Going back to the full verb, we have sonar. And this is very easy to do. Once again, you get rid of the AR, and the angle for it, he, she, and it is all the same. So we have sonó. How would you say now, my phone rang? Mi teléfono sonó. Now we have everything we need to translate the full sentence. I was buying a coffee, and while I was paying, my phone rang. Estaba comprando un café, y mientras estaba pagando, mi teléfono sonó. Another word that is very useful for linking phrases together is suddenly. And you have two main options in Spanish. You can say de repente or de pronto. Both are equally correct. For now, we'll use the first one, de repente. How would you say this? I was buying a coffee for my friend. Estaba comprando un café para mi amigo, or if it's a female friend, of course, mi amiga. When suddenly, cuando de repente, my phone rang. Mi teléfono sonó. Let's put it together. I was buying a coffee for my friend when suddenly my phone rang. Estaba comprando un café para mi amigo cuando de repente mi teléfono sonó. Sometimes you can use the ando or yendo sound just on its own without having to use estar. For example, I was waiting there and talking with my friend when suddenly... Now, first of all, how would you say I was waiting there? Estaba esperando allí. Now the next bit says, and talking with my friend. Now here you could simply use hablando. So we're using hablando just on its own. So it'd be y hablando con mi amigo. What we're doing here is a very literal translation of what we have in English, so it's quite easy to make the connection. Let's try once more. I was waiting there and talking with my friend when suddenly my phone rang. Estaba esperando allí, hablando con mi amigo, cuando de repente mi teléfono sonó. Next up, I'd like to do an example with two simple pasts. We have, I was working when he called me and cancelled our appointment. In a visual sense, it would look like this. We have, I was working, so this is the past progressive, what was going on. Now we have our first simple past, this piece of action, he called me. Then we have a second piece of action, he cancelled our appointment. You can see that in the simple past, or the preterite as it's known, these actions happen one after another, not simultaneously. So we have our background, I was working, then one piece of action and another piece of action. Let's try to do it. How would you say I was working? Estaba trabajando. I was working when he called me. Estaba trabajando cuando me llamó. How do you say he cancelled? Canceló. And the word for appointment is cita. This is a feminine word in Spanish, la cita. So how would you say our appointment? Nuestra cita. Now let's put it all together. I was working when he called me and cancelled our appointment. Estaba trabajando cuando me llamó y canceló nuestra cita. We could also say it in another way. I was working when he called me to cancel our appointment. How would you say that? Estaba trabajando cuando me llamó para cancelar nuestra cita. Hopefully you remembered to use para here, because in English it's implying he called me in order to cancel our appointment. Do you remember the word for there is or there are? I. Now we also have a version for there was, which is había. The nice thing is that había will stand for there was, but also there were. So we have a very nice grouping here. I means there is, there are, so both single and plural, I. And había will do exactly the same, but in the past. There was or there were. Let's try using it. What's the word for people? Gente. This is a feminine word in Spanish, la gente. How would you say a lot of people? Mucha gente. Now say there were a lot of people. Había mucha gente. Now try this. I was waiting and there were a lot of people there. Estaba esperando y había mucha gente allí. So far this is all background, so let's add a piece of action with the simple past. I was waiting and there were a lot of people there when they arrived. What is they arrived? Llegaron. So now translate the whole phrase. Estaba esperando y había mucha gente allí cuando llegaron. Look at this example, which is much longer. I was waiting. There were a lot of people there. I was drinking a coffee when suddenly she arrived. Again, visually, we have three past progressives all going on simultaneously. So we have I was waiting, there were a lot of people, I was drinking coffee, and now the simple past, she arrived. Here again, you can see that the past progressive is very good for numerous actions happening at the same time, setting the scene, the background of what was going on before this piece of action happened. Let's go back to the English sentence and notice that I want you to use the verb tomar for drinking. How would you translate it? Estaba esperando. Había mucha gente allí. Estaba tomando un café cuando de repente ella llegó. Notice that I decided to make the she explicit here, but it's fine if you didn't. Do you remember the word for traffic? Tráfico. How would you say a lot of traffic? Mucho tráfico. There was a lot of traffic. Había mucho tráfico. How would you say we were waiting? Estábamos esperando. What's the verb to cross? Cruzar. And how would you say the street? La calle. We were waiting to cross the street. Estábamos esperando para cruzar la calle. Notice again the use of para. We were waiting in order to cross the street. Now let's extend it even further. There was a lot of traffic and we were waiting to cross the street. Había mucho tráfico y estábamos esperando para cruzar la calle. Notice here that it's all past progressive. So we have two horizontal lines. One, there was a lot of traffic. Second one, we were waiting to cross the street. Next up, I'd like to introduce the verb to rain. In Spanish, this is llover. Two things to notice with the pronunciation. First of all, we have the double L giving us this jo sound, and then the strong B here. So to rain is llover. How would you use the ing and say raining? Lloviendo. So llover goes to lloviendo. Now say it was raining. Estaba lloviendo. Let's add it into the mix. It was raining, there was a lot of traffic, and we were waiting to cross the street. Estaba lloviendo, había mucho tráfico y estábamos esperando para cruzar la calle. So here we're increasing the description, we're making it even more vivid by adding yet another line of the past progressive. It was raining, there was a lot of traffic, we were waiting to cross the street. This is all going on simultaneously, setting the scene, setting the background, describing the picture. Now, how would you say when my telephone rang? Cuando mi teléfono sonó. Let's look at all of that together and we'll add in even another element. So we have, it was raining, there was a lot of traffic, and we were waiting to cross the street when she called and cancelled the appointment. Let's look at this in a visual sense. So here we have our three past progressives. It was raining, there was a lot of traffic, we were waiting to cross the street. Now, onto that scene, two things happened. She called and she cancelled the appointment. Let's go back to the sentence and I'd like you to try to translate all of that. Estaba lloviendo. Había mucho tráfico y estábamos esperando para cruzar la calle cuando llamó y canceló la cita. To make it more clear, you could also put in here cuando ella llamó y canceló la cita. Analyzing it once again, we have past progressive, estaba lloviendo. This is also the past había, there was a lot of traffic. Past progressive again, estábamos esperando. Then finally action, ella llamó y canceló la cita. So this is how I would like you to visualize these two tenses working together in tandem. The past progressive is a horizontal line going this way. It's setting the scene. It's telling you what was happening at the time. It's all of the background information. Then the simple past comes as a vertical arrow down on top of that with a concrete action, something that happened. As you've seen, this is a very flexible formula because you could have two past progressives happening at the same time and then this simple past happens. Or you could reverse it. You have one past progressive but two simple past actions. Even three past progressives going on, setting the scene, and then two simple pasts happening. So you can see the possibilities are endless. As we move forward in the course, try your best to hold on to this visual representation of how these two tenses work together.